Hello again, everybody. Sebastian Keynes here, back with you with another Watch Our Realms video. In this one, I actually have with me my first collab. This is MortarMike, who's going to be joining me to talk about Semrah and the heroes that we are going to be considering to use to combat this, I guess, Transformer.
Yeah, basically this giant Roctimus Prime. So we're ready to make it work.
We're going to be talking about Semrah here, and right in the background, you can. I'm just going to let him run and do his thing. Essentially, we're going to go through the modes, and then we're just going to highlight some heroes that we think may be useful to combat each one of these modes, right? So let me set it all up for you folks. Semrah had a change. There was a slight change in Forerunners 3 weeks after he was introduced. Essentially, the developer said, you guys have it too easy. We're going to make you use a lot of support heroes to deal with this this boss. And so we have had to consider that. So let's start first with the SA mode. The SA mode is going to be requiring us to bring CC heroes into this battle, more specifically, freeze and stun. So do you have any heroes on your list right now that you're going to be considering?
I have an interesting list. So I have a couple options for stun, a couple options for freeze. The thing about it is freeze has a bigger impact on the scale. As far as I've noticed, it seems to knock it back more. But stun is probably more accessible for players, so you get tons of chance to have it. I am looking forward to. I've been trying Captain Rev. It works because every attack he gets a stun in there, which is okay. I've even been joking around with. You're gonna laugh at this. I've been joking around with Cratch because at A1 he does a stun on his ult on each hit, and I got the artifact. So this is like really like in game, y'all. So it's in game here, but his artifact allows him to shoot 6 rounds. So that's a bunch of stuns. And if you get that right when his chainsaw starts, you can actually cancel the attack, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so it's the small things of like how can you go against this content. I like using Captain Rev. You want to have your frost options. I think you're gonna need, if you have somebody like a Boreas, you want to have him at like an A1 because then it's his chance to freeze on his regular attack increases, I think, to either 40% or 50%. So he gets it a lot more often, way more than A0. And one of the interesting options I've been having the most fun with, because this is the most controversial one on my list so far, is actually Azor.
Azor, okay.
Azor has, yeah, it's so random because Azor is one of the champions that everybody doesn't want to have, but more than likely they do have. But every one of his attacks allow you the chance to proc stun. When he does his ultimate, or when it's in a heated state, it allows you to proc stun. When he does his ultimate, he's giving out shields, extra damage on all of your other allies as well. And you could build him just tanky enough to take that one hit that comes from the Aegis shield. So it's just like it's this little collection of stuff. He's everything you need to take care of that role. And it's just enough to prolong the assault. He's not going to stop it, but he's going to prolong how long it takes to charge up, which is basically what you really want to do. And then you can go for DPS like you see right now in the background. You see it's happening. You just want to prolong it and then let DPS try to break the arm before the arm strikes. That's the easiest option. You can completely CC it, but then you're going really far into the mechanics instead of actually getting the score. So somebody like an Azor is when useful.
So for the side, so initially people were just trying to bulldoze that mode. It just DPS out. Now it's
it's hard to do.
It's coming on a little bit more frequently, so you actually have to deal with it. And what I've shown in the previous video was that if you add enough stuns and freezes to that charge, you decrease the attack so significantly that when he slams you, he tickles you, right? And but the downside to it is that you don't want him doing it too much. So you'd have to balance the DPS and the CC. If he does it too much, you're just gonna get that vulnerability added to you, and he's gonna he'll catch up and he will slam you. Now here's a couple of heroes that I'm gonna tell you that
Ooh, break it down.
that I've tested, and I wanna hear your input in it. Okay, here's my first one. It's a minor one because it's an epic, but Livian has a standard.
Livian.
Yeah.
All she does with her Captain America shield.
Yeah.
Is that copyright infringement? Is that copyright? I don't know. But yeah, she does. She gets consistent stuns. You're right.
So I used her for Apocalypse 1, and her with Abomination, they both kind of teamed up, especially when Abomination also activated his stance. They both were teaming up. You could see it to decrease that bar.
I'm so glad you just said that, though. Not to interrupt you, but I'm glad you also specified there are multiple difficulties. So don't come in here going for the highest difficulty to just dominate. Experiment as much as you want on the lower one and get your teams together. Don't just come in here thinking you can run Guild Boss 1 and it's gonna work. Like,
yes,
it'll catch up to you.
That is something that you have to, because this is endgame. So Apocalypse 1 is going to be okay. So let me backtrack even a little bit more. So when you do the Drake's Chasm, now it is what it is. So when you do Nightmare 3, you break the shield and you start getting into the 25 K blood range. You start thinking to yourself, okay, I'm actually take this to 4 and I'm gonna probably get that third shield down and maybe get the 25K there yet. Sometimes that works, right? Not with this. No. In Apocalypse 1, you can get your 35, 40,000. You try to take the same composition to Apocalypse 2, 5,000, and you get wiped. Yep. Yeah. So
you have to pay attention to the mechanics, and I will say I love that about this. That's my favorite part.
Yes.
It's because if you were just using the same teams, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, well, I got a team for that. I'm done with that content and no creative thinking," and people get disappointed. Like, give me content that seems well thought out, and you can let me know what your perspective of it is. I don't feel like it feels overtuned. I think that it's hard, but it doesn't feel like, bro, I came from Raid, so the Hydra heads were overtuned. Or the bull, Bommel the bull, Bommel the rhino, like all that stuff, yeah, overtuned. But it feels just right. Like, it feels challenging, but it gives you a little bit of leeway to experiment, try stuff out. And like, I love that. It makes you think of what champions you want to send out there instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to just send my own DPS team and tank through it, because it will eventually actually catch up to you.
Correct. So, all right. So, besides Livian, the only other one that I didn't hear you mention, and I actually have her running here in the background, because she can, if you give her a Night Rage, she can take care of that mode by herself. Helga.
Helga's one of the champions I want to know more about her. I know that she has, the only thing I know about Helga, she has amazing attack speed, and she's going to trivialize the Styx boss. So I haven't tried her yet for Semrah 2, but I want to be one of those people, like, when I try them, I can brag about them, but I don't know enough about them to give that thing saying, yeah, this champ is going to be amazing. Like, let me actually test them.
Okay, so I have her here in the background, and what I can tell you, yes, she does have a specialized attack speed. Helga was a fusion in the Forerunner servers now, I want to say 5-6 months ago. It's been that long. And when she was introduced into the game, it's like, where we're going to use her. And so in the Void Tower, we were using just a machine gun, little elite demons in the Void Rift. And then the Lord of Styx came out, and we just saw her melting that shield. And then I was going through the roster and thinking, okay, can she be useful for any one of the 3 modes? And then I saw stun. Every 8 hits, she applies a stun. Okay. And
she attacks fast, so that's a lot of stuns.
So when I brought her to my account, I haven't tried in the test server, but I'm sure with the gear that we can get there, I can probably get her to the 900 speed.
Especially since recently.
But when I gave her about 600 speed, she hit so fast and so many times that little bar knocked back 9-10 times.
Oh, I love
By the time that boss was ready to come at us with it, none of my heroes lost HP. We just got the vulnerability here. So she alone can be in one composition, and you give her enough rage. And my understanding is her artifact does that. It's just
exactly. It gives her rage as she does her abilities.
That boss can go as fast as he wants. She'll take care of it.
So this is dope, because this is great, because they're giving you this solution. Isn't she going to be a fusion coming soon too?
Yes, it'll be she should be just a shard shard summon event. Yes.
Yeah, which is fine. To be fair, all of the fusions in this game don't seem difficult. So it's pretty easy to get them. You just play like you normally play and just make sure you hit your little milestones and you're set. That's so good that you say that too. But yeah, all of the like the stuff you need, the game gives you a pretty good collection to run with. Like you said, Abomination was being used because he does get a decent amount of stuns.
Yes.
Lydian, she's easy to get. You have a ton of options to at least have a good starting point, and then as you get the extra like S tier champions and stuff, you can kind of scale from that. But I like that.
Very early on, you can even use Mary. Mary will knock it down with 4. So if you want to team up Mary with Abomination, yeah, you should be able to handle this first mode fairly well.
That's fine. This is the only thing I hope that doesn't change drastically in the next couple days.
I'm hoping no.
I don't think it will.
Keep tinkering. Arturos and I talked about this week's version, and it just felt changed just slightly. And I was like, he wasn't activating his lasers. And this,
he's much more aggressive than the first time I played against him. He's way more aggressive. Yeah, like when he comes in, he goes straight into the chainsaw.
And then after this most recent update on Forerunners, we were like, did they change him again and not say anything? I was like, well, you know what? I recorded a couple runs last week. I'll try to see if I pick on any differences. So we'll see. All right. So you were talking about selling us the solution to a problem. All right, let's talk about the shield mode, and then when he becomes with his Aegis mode, right? Now, the Aegis mode will give him this buff, and it will allow him the opportunity to not only gain attack and defense, but then he also gets resistance to magic and physical damage. How do we combat this right now? And how do we combat this in the future? So let's start to do right now. Which heroes are you bringing to this?
Okay, so I have 3 options that I use. I'm going to say pretty much 2, but one's kind of like a split. First thing I try to use are champions that can ignore defense or magic resistance. So Silas is clockwork. You just tap his ultimate and he's going to help you, because the first thing you want when you see the shield pop up is burst damage, to get as much damage as you can in quickly, because as that tankiness adds on, it becomes harder. If you want to go that route. If you want to go the route where you can still do a decent amount of damage, then you want to start dealing true damage, because true damage is going to do that damage regardless. So that's where, as funny as much as we joke about it, even somebody like a Kalina is usable on your team. Is she amazing? No, because she can't crit. But she allows you to still do that consistent damage if your team is tanky enough to withstand. But I prefer to do the option of burst damage first, because the more damage you can do at the beginning, the less you have to worry about as the shields continue to build up. So true damage is useful. Alistair, which you get for free. Well, you got him as a fusion recently. He's a really good option here, because you just pop his ult and he just throws Radiant Erosion on him, which is just damage that's reliable, that helps you get through the content. Silas is one of my favorite options. Seraphina is actually really good too, because her ult just makes her just do burst damage. Anybody that has good single target fast ults are really useful. But those are the ones I always think of whenever I think of Aegis Shield, is Silas, because he can do it really quickly. I am also hoping that Micah can do the same thing, or Micah can do the same thing. The only thing I'm concerned about with Micah, as much damage as she does, which is glorious, it's lovely, is in her kit, it says that she ignores a portion of defense, but she does magical damage. So maybe that's a typo, but I'm hoping that means they just typed the wrong thing in there. They meant, magical, magic resistance, and that's where it makes sense. But yeah, for the most part, I think that having some good burst damage as soon as you see that arm is going to make it easier, because if he has 60% versus having 40%, it's a world of a difference fighting that arm. Because if that Aegis Shield gets up to 4 and 5, the damage you're going to do is way less.
Yeah,
and she does is way more.
It hits harder, right? So, so like you said, defense down heroes. So Torador is going to be one in particular. In addition, you mentioned Silas. The other one that we use in the Forerunners is Ares. He has not been introduced to the global server.
Yes.
But it's his basic. Basic attack applies defense reduction. That's all you need out of him. Essentially, he does decent damage as well. He goes with the Nightmare Council. and if you want to bring him in that, that's fine. Volca is another one that we have brought in because of the vulnerabilities, and
vulnerability, yeah.
it really kind of counts this up. Here, okay, now looking into the future, here is the hero that we're waiting on, and that
look how slow the damage is right now. Like you see, when the shields are up, it goes so much slower.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that people are noticing that. It's just how many stacks here. Now, in Apocalypse 2, just in my first run, he builds 8 easy. It's just so crazy.
Yeah.
So, but the hero that I'm referring to, because we've kind of looked at his kit already, is Lucius. Because Lucius will be the only one that apparently can dispel an enemy buff.
Yeah, even though it's a crazy low rate, but at the same time, that's really all you need.
But how many hits does he do with his ultimate? That's the key, right? So if you're doing 4% as to how many times you're going with that thing,
it's gonna pop.
It's gonna pop. Yeah, exactly. So
I wish I could get rid of overdrive, but maybe not.
Then I started looking further into his kit, and here's what Arturos told me, is when I told him what I found was, do you think that they're really trying to sell us a solution to the problem? And I said, well, that could possibly be too, because what if I were to tell you that once you get Lucius to 8-3, he gains a stun?
See, this is cool too. I will say, for one, I love that. I want to say this about Watcher Rounds. I've said this so many times now. One thing I love about the game is that they sell you the solution before the problem. So you have the choice to invest or not. You don't feel like it's champ locked from the beginning because you're like, hey, you had the chance to get them. You make your own choice, not this content's hard. Oh, now I got to shell out cash to get this champion that's coming out in the content. I love that option. Like Edith, for example. Well, a lot of us were guilty. I'm not going to say us because I thought she was okay. But saying that she wasn't great, and then 2 weeks later, Gear Dungeon 2 comes out. Anai was the same way. I think like 2 weeks after that, Boreas Codex came out. So we have a history of them having champs, and if their kit seems unique enough, or it's like, something stands out about their kit, try to get them. Because they're going to have some benefit coming down the road, but in this case, the boss is coming. He's still beatable, but Lucius is kind of like another way to go above and beyond against the boss if you happen to get him.
Yeah, man, and I'm looking forward to get them. And it's something that we kind of struggle with Montan too, right? Because we're trying to understand as to why did they release the hero, and I understand the community gets mad saying you're just diluting the pool, but then there comes this content, and sometimes you just want a heads up saying don't ignore this hero, and that's why I in the Forerunner account, which is not non-spin account, I said no, I have to go for Dahlia because you never know what they're gonna throw us.
Bro, here's the thing. There's so few champions. There's Dahlia, there's Ardea, there's Volk. There's another one that's gonna be on the way that I found out from Destin that it's basically gonna be an equivalent or better than Praetus, which is crazy to think about. But it has a range just like their ranges. So there may be content where it's easy if you can do DPS from afar, you're going to have a benefit as opposed to your fighters being too close to whatever the area is. Maybe it's like a lava monster or something. Who knows? That's way down the road. I'm really guessing at the point. But the option of having that, it makes enough sense for me to say, let me get that champion. Let me get that champion. Something sounds like it makes sense. And then you actually use them and it's still great. Even in here, she's a great DPS option. Her kit doesn't really ring true on a lot of different parts of it, but she's a great DPS option of just consistently having it, because you said just now, with the point I was trying to get back to, I'm glad I got back to this rabbit trail, is that some people are complaining, like, hey, are champs diluting the pool? I will say champs are diluting the pool when they have no use in the game. Every champion we've seen in the past, like, half year has a use in this game.
And that has been a big change lately. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
every single one.
I would say.
Bad. Yeah, I would say it's bad if there were champions that had no purpose, they were pointless. That's diluting. When they all have some place where they're amazing at, yeah, that's wonder. And then you're gonna want more champions, because after you finish with the first team, you got to make the second one. And that's a visual bug right there. Because that scared the crap out of me the first time I saw that. When his chainsaw was up, but his health wasn't available, I was like, oh, crap.
No, there's still some visual bugs with him, but no.
Yeah.
That's how usually it does look. So, all right. So then the last mode is that's pretty much straightforward, and I think that we
Mhm.
possibly are going to see more heroes come into the game to combat that mode. But the last mode is the Benomic, or it's actually called the Drake's Arm. But essentially, he's putting venom on you, and then on top of that, he's putting a poison in you. And as the battle
Yeah.
goes on, they stack more. So I think you start out with 5, and then it goes in the second spray you get up to 10. On the 2nd
Mhm.
round you get 7, and then in the subsequent round you get 10, and it just increases. So straightforward there, right, Mike? The two heroes that we can think about that are a little bit more accessible than the other ones would be Elowen and Medan.
I love that you said Elowen as accessible, but I agree.
Considering
See,
the
I
roster,
mean, yeah, considering the roster, yeah, very true. So you have Elowen, you have Madan. If you were going to have some more options, you happen to get out of Ancients. The Somi's a really good option. The Somi's probably, in my opinion, probably my favorite option because how many things he also adds to the kit. But I'm still gonna have Elowen if I have Elowen. I'm still gonna be using her. And also somebody like Eunomia who dispels buffs on a time frame, so there's some benefits there. But Madan is plenty enough to put a team around her, and you can dispel on enough of them to be able to survive, and everything else is just going to be straight heals that you can keep going. Um, this arm is going to be the arm that it's funny. I want to say this is going to be the arm that catches people off guard the most, but not necessarily because if you come at this arm the right way, you're going to be fine. The challenge most people are going to have with this arm is by the time this arm shows up, their DPS is burnt and they don't have ults ready again. And they've added a modifier where every time you take a champion off the field, they stay away for 10 seconds longer. So Laurel becomes less viable as you continue to play if you want to play with the pick up and drop down, but just use her ult. That works too. But in this case, you would have to say, how can I get the damage? Because of the 3 arms, this is the weakest arm as far as stats and how quickly you can take it down. So again, burst damage is useful here. If you can get quick damage on it in the earlier difficulties, you can knock it out before he does another actual attack. When the arm comes out, it's an immediate attack. Like it's unavoidable. But he can do it again if you take too long. And that's what you don't want to have happen rapidly because then those stacks become nuts. And if you don't have the right healers, the right debuff removers, you're in trouble. But let me know if I'm wrong about this. This has been my experience. When they die and they come back, that stuff is gone. But you don't want to be relying on that.
You don't. And
You're
so
on a dead champion.
So I don't know if you can see the budget team that I kind of used because I wanted just to save the stronger heroes for Apo 2, but you can kind of see that as there's a lot of epics in here. I am bringing defense down, but Medan did the job for me, at least to go at least 3 rounds where so what I mean by 4 rounds. So what I mean by a round is actually going through the cycle of modes. So by the 4th round, it was just too hard for her to pick up or to catch up because I had to.
Tell them what the rounds consist of if you don't mind, because it's a whole different mechanic. It's a completely different mechanic to go about.
So the round is you start with the saw, and then you get him down, get him into the weakened state. He then transforms into the shield mode, and then you do the same thing, and then you go into the Drake's mode, right? And then once you are able to then pass those 3, you can cycle again. The difficulty increases as the battle goes on, and then you keep going and try to get through as much damage as you can. And each cycle only lasts 3 minutes. So if you don't get him into the weakened mode within 3 minutes, your run is done. Okay, so you either have to wipe out or time out. That's the only way that that's going to end.
And a good way to think of that too is the timer resets with each arm.
Yes.
So if you think of it that way, because somebody like, I got to get all this damage in in a small window like Guild Boss 1, that's not the case. As long as you get what you need to get done in the time frame, you can keep on pushing, until your team doesn't make it anymore.
And that is what that was one thing that confused my guildmates early on too. It's like, hey, guys, the clock keeps resetting. It's like it's meant to. It's meant to, bud. You gotta keep going. You don't. It's not just a 3-minute fight. You gotta keep going. It's a sustained battle. So yeah,
it really is. It really is.
it'll be a little bit different for people as well. So as long as you're aware of that, it won't catch you a surprise as many Forerunner people.
It surprised me because I did a first run. I just did a video and just said, let me just see what this boss is like. And I was like, am I tripping? Did the clock just restart? And I'm in the video like, and I was like, it did restart. It did restart.
Yeah.
Because I was like, 3 minutes is a real short time for a boss, but yeah.
Unfortunately, I did not get caught off guard because I actually read the manual, or the mechanic of it, because I wanted to understand exactly what I was going to deal with, and I saw timer will restart. And I was like, okay, I think I understand what's going to go on here. And sure enough, when you see it, it's like 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and all of a sudden you're trying to get through. So something like the Aegis mode, right? Come on, get down already. And all of a sudden battle ends, and you're like, what happened? Oh, timer.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I did. I was like, who pulled me out? Put me back in, coach.
I wasn't done. No, he done. We were done, but he's done.
I'm done fighting you guys.
You guys are just tickling me. Come on, get out of here. All right. The only other support hero that it was in the healer subtype here that I didn't hear you bring up was I'm gonna say Fercy. We want Fercy and
yes. Oh yes.
Because she will do the damage reduction. I don't know if you in your stream if you mention Ezran. Ezran really only protects one person from that fatal hit, so he'll limit the damage reduction. You can try him if you want. The other one, if
you're going to do Ezran, I add this caveat. If you're going to do Ezran, you're going to have to run the risk of his exclusive artifact. If you end up getting it, it turns his heals into machine gun heals. It becomes nuts if it works.
Or if it works. If it works as intended, right? Yes, exactly. And we mentioned Dasomi. Now, Dasomi's debuff is conditional, but if you can pair him up with another healer to make sure that you can cleanse the stuff off, he will be perfect for this as well.
Yeah, Dasomi is incredible because Dasomi is one. I like this because there's some champions that bend the class that they're in. Like Durza, I don't consider Durza a mage. Durza's a support champion. In it's a support champion. In this case, like Dasomi is a support champion. They just class as a healer, but you think of a healer as the one that heals. This champion gives inspiration, defense increase, removes debuffs, does heals up to 50%. Like this is definitely a support champion in the content. So that's a good way to actually be thinking about it. But I think Dasomi is going to be one of my favorite options just because of how many things they bring to the table. And if you don't have a constant, if the only DPS boost you have is Dolores, then Dasomi is going to fit in just fine for you. Or first he's going to fit in just fine for you because they just help you push things just a little bit further. And there's a lot of utility in their kit to make them useful. So yeah, Dasomi's a good one. Hard to get, but everybody that got them and trashed them, stand by, go ahead and promote them to 6 because you're going to need them soon.
Now, and I know she gets a lot of flack, but in the DPS class, if you want to form a Northern Comp and you actually went for Falcia.
I know you're about to do it. Yes, I did go for Falcia. Yes. You tried it. I have not tried Falcia. Interesting. I want to see that.
That is somebody that I have been able to do a lot of damage. Now, granted, I have Elder as the Lord. If you can have King Hearts or Elder, you can bring those two, team her up for Falcia. Then you can do something like Mary into it as well, and then you get a boost to Medan, right? You have your Northern Comp right there. And
you've been cooking. I love this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I've been experimenting with this boss a lot. Yeah. And then do you have anybody in the DPS class that you kind of been thinking about possibly using for this besides the Drake's Chasm DPS that we bring all the time?
Let me see here. So I'm going to actually look at some of the ones that I've been using. As far as DPS, so it depends on how crappy you're playing. You're gonna laugh. Jira is okay. Valk is actually not bad either. I'm not Valk. Valeria is okay. If you can get the damage, she does good damage. She's wonderful because you can technically time her ults to work really well for
Correct.
you, whether she dies or not.
It's a little challenging, but you can do it. There are breaks in there where you can restore her health.
Yeah, so she's been really useful. Let's see DPSs. I'm pulling up here on my screen now. Zilla 2 is consistent damage, but you already know about her. I will say also, I've been pleasantly surprised with Honora. I've been surprised with it because just the amount of utility in her kit is really useful in this boss. Being able to have the freezes, being able to do pretty good damage. She can't get the extra buffs and stuff that you want. Like she can't. She's immune to most debuffs and buffs.
But maybe that's exactly what they made her for. Maybe they made her for this, right? You don't need to buffer. Yeah. You don't need to bring that type of hero in there. So it maybe allows you to then open up another slot. And so
exactly. So now you don't have to think of that comp at all.
Maybe there'll be a point where we just have all these summon units. Units that are like maybe Nabra. I haven't even tried the new Nabras on this actually. But all these little summoner people just you form a team around that.
So Navras works. I know that Navras does work on there. Who's the other one? Cyrus's minions work. Her labor works. I don't think that Calypso and I don't think that Praetus' summons work. And I also don't believe that Init's work because it says assigns those. I haven't tried Init yet, but that would be crazy if that works too because he puts a lot of those out.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried Init yet. Init's not really a damage champ. He's definitely a support champion too.
He's going to be a support champion, correct? Yeah. So if you want to transition more to the support unit, so the only other category that I have here are units that are going to boost your damage, not necessarily Dolores. Dolores gives you an inspiration, and we cover Fercy as well. But I'm just thinking of heroes that you can use to boost your damage. So I have a couple here, and I've tried it, especially if you want to mix around with the cultist is one. Magda. Yeah. She was just recently introduced in Global. You team her up, all the allies in her range gain a damage boost and a penetration boost. So you can try using her. And then the other one that you kind of mentioned him already as Azor. He has that little 10% damage boost that he gives it. But the other fellow that I actually tried out and I've used for a while for the Apocalypse one here, before I switched over to Livian because of the sun, was Oram. Not as an Oram out in the burn, but he is, he also boosts your damage. And I saw the difference. Falcia was doing 2 more K in damage just because she had Oram around him.
So I'm so glad you mentioned this because this is great because this unlocks a lot of champions that don't fit the traditional role of tank. When we think of tank, we think of 2 things. Do they have an unyielding or do they have a shield? If they don't have those 2 things, you instantly drop them down the list.
Exactly. You don't consider them to be the true tank. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, you just kind of just leave them be. But in this case, you don't need that to survive what you're doing. The role that they need doesn't require it. Like, if we think of tanks, the first thing I think of is like a Baron. That's textbook example of a tank that has everything that you want in them. But an Oram or an Azor or, well, Brokir, of course, we already know Brokir. But like these different options that are out here, they don't fit the role of tank in most other content. But in this content, they're great because they fit the bill of what you need, and they come with a ton of utility in their kit that makes them really viable for this content. And that's what you want. You don't want champions that are great in every single thing you put them in. You want a champion, as soon as you get them, you can say, oh, nice, now I could do great in this content. Or, oh, nice, now I can have fun in this one. I mean, Praetus is going to be great about everything, but, I like the fact that you have champions that have specialties, and it takes you taking a little bit of homework, a little bit of testing to find out, oh, snap, I didn't even think about that. Like, Cade is one of the best damage dealers in the new content right now for Dahlia, the boss, the Green Dragon. He's one of the best champions for damage. We forgot about Cade.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of people are sleeping on Cade, and he kind of resurfaced in the top. I mean, I'm talking the top meta of GBG. There are 2 nasty defenses right now that are hard to beat that have Cade in them. And I was wondering which one of you, and at least in my guild, which one of you thought of this terrible thing? Because it was your affiliations have to be top to combat some of these Cade defenses that is going on right now. So Cade, I think, might actually do well here with the lore bonus. So
Yeah, see, you're cooking. You're cooking. Oh yeah, Cyrus is going to be an MVP here, just because. Also, Cyrus is my favorite Lord. I mean, there's better ones, sure, but Cyrus is my favorite because you could build him two completely different ways, and he's great at both. You want damage, he's great at damage. You want tankiness, he's great at tankiness. And put Astral Obelisk on there, he's throwing minions out left and right. You're not getting them like the Codex boss, but you're getting a few.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
a handful.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I have in terms of kind of utilizing the heroes that you might have is just remember the only reason that you want a defender in this is maybe somebody that has CC like Livian, but you just have to gear them so they are strong enough to be able to take that slam, that hand slam that he does, right? So if you can build them tanky in an invigoration set or a morale set, bring him that, use those sets, get that damage boost, and try to get out of there with whatever mech fragments you need to get the chest that you're targeting. So that
I'm so glad you said morale set. I'm so glad you said that because that's forgotten. Like people, like we know it exists, but you're not forging it, you're not farming it because you don't have enough gear spaces. But morale's gonna be great for your tank in this content. Yeah, I agree 100%, 120%. Yeah, I'm an agree person because it's a good idea. Y'all should be doing it. Y'all be doing it this week.
to close this out, do you have any other heroes that were not brought up, or did we pretty much empty out the can here?
I think this is a good palette wetter. This is a good palette wetter for people to see this video and get started on the content. There's going to be so many comps, so many ideas that are going to happen when the entire player base gets a chance to play around with this.
Yes.
We've been testing this a whole bunch as much as we could just to learn it, but it's only so many hours we could put in with people on test server, people on Forerunner. When the player base of millions gets to this, with all their different compositions and teams, it's going to be a whole different story. So this is a good starter place.
Yeah, we pretty much just kind of emphasize heroes that everybody's going to have access to because we know the Arborers are going to kick his ass. That's no question in that, right? And then one of the things that I'm trying to really understand right now, and I'm trying to talk to people in Forerunners that are actually using these compositions, and I don't know if you've seen screenshots, but some of the top teams in Apocalypse 2 are using Carnelian. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how they're using her for this, right? And
so she also does damage.
She does damage too. Exactly, and not only that, but she has that soul essence. So I'm trying to figure out how exactly it is that they timing this to make sure.
I wonder what the awaken rate has to be for that because I know when she gets higher, she can also you don't lose soul essence sometimes.
It's our top team, so just keep that in mind. Yeah. We're talking about 3, 4, 5 awakened Carnelians. So
yeah, easily.
A lot of this going to come into play. So final thoughts as we get this boss coming to the global server. You kind of already mentioned you think it's balanced enough. Do you any changes? Do you foresee any changes, or is it going to be okay just to release them? Because I think that in Apocalypse 2, the developers really want to make sure that people don't hit the top threshold too early, so they can sell us some heroes.
I think that I will say that it's in a good place. That's my personal opinion. It's in a good place right now. The champs that you have in the game allow you to do great. And this is great because it's the kind of content that only gets better as the pool increases. Because let's not forget, you still have to make 2 teams.
Yes.
So you got to come up with some really diverse comps of what you're going to use. I like it because it doesn't feel like, oh crap, I can't play in this. You got free champions you can use in most of this content and do great. My light just died. That's okay. This was still alive. But it's in a good place for me. I like the fact that it didn't feel like if I messed up, I'm going to wipe. Like it shows you a tip in the screen, use stun and freeze at the time of the chainsaw, so you know what to use then. Yeah. Aegis Shield, you can tap the actual you can tap the buffs or debuffs and find out what they're doing, or you can just read the stuff before the battle. Like it doesn't feel like anything is just crazy hard to beat. You can start off on the easy difficulties and still have a fun time, and that's the most important thing to me. This feels like a drag. If it feels annoying, I'm going to be upset. But last but not least, I think the rewards are really good.
They're going to be worth it. They're going to be worth it. You probably have some pieces in your gear pieces in your account that you've been hoarding to, just hoping that there's some way for you to fix them. And sure enough, they give us that solution to that problem here. And I'm telling you, even if you get the middle chest in Apocalypse 1, you're going to have a chance to get 4 ancients, some rare crystal. Maybe the best one that I've gotten so far is 4 ancients and a legendary crystal in one of those drops. So
seriously, he didn't say shards.
It's essentially free shards. Do this content. Yes, we know you're going to be frustrated by it at some point, depending on the heroes that you have. But I just showed you in one composition. It's a lot of epics, pretty standard, accessible, and you should be able to hit 30,000 at least in Apocalypse 1 and get your. Now work as a guild, because if the guild,
good point,
severely injures Semrah, you're gonna get the bonus rewards. The bonus rewards is with everything is cooking, because you're gonna get fragments, shards. It's what they call them in this game. You're gonna get shards to put together an artifact essence, something that you can use to level up an exclusive artifact, or you're gonna get ancient refining shards to get a crystal together. So you maybe go and try to rescue an ancient piece that is just hanging around in your account.
See, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So for those of y'all that don't know what he means by that, it's called like a refining crystal. It allows you to go, it allows you to choose one spec on the gear that you have and re-roll it for higher. If it gets lower, you don't get lower. You keep what you have. But if it's better, it only improves. So let's say you had a piece of gear that was great, but the attack speed sucks. You put an ancient on there and that bad boy shoots up to purple. It's now you have a chance now you have a reason to keep that piece of gear.
God tier piece.
Yeah, and it's just like as you're playing the game, you get these extra little options here and there, and the rewards are well worth it. Like, I will be honest, I this might sound like a moonshine statement to say, I feel spoiled in how easy it is to get rewards in the game, and they keep adding content that allows you to get a lot more. Like, this right here is welcome for the rewards that you're going to get out of it. I will say that.
And I understand that other people don't share the sentiment that you and I do. And you and I played another game where rewards were really scarce, right? And
that's literally the first topic we say. Like, you not come from it, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Don't know. We had to work to get that one freaking shard. So to us, this is unique. This is like, holy, you are adding 4 ancients to a chest. Okay, I'll take it.
There was no content in the game we played before where you were like, in this chest, I'm going to get 4 legendaries. I'm going to get 4 voids. No.
You
got to get on a leaderboard for that. No.
Exactly. Yes, you have to pay to do that one. So, hey, MortarMike, this was really fun. You and I can go on and talk about Watcher of Realms extensively, and we have. You people don't know. I wish we would have recorded that 3-hour conversation that we had a while ago. We covered almost everything, and we started, and our raid PTSD came back into play. We started going after that too, and it was a fun conversation. But this is kind of a preview of what I can give you when he and I get together. MortarMike, again, this was fun, man. Thank you very much for coming in, joining me to talk about this boss. And man, I hope you and your guild have fun trying to taking this guy down when he does release.
Yeah, this has indeed been a pleasure. I've been looking forward to doing this collab with you for a minute. Literally, when we first conversated, I was like, "Oh yeah, me and this guy could just burn hours on this game."
It was just that sense. It's like, oh, I know which waters you have been treading. Yes, man. Yeah, we're talking about this game. There's nothing comparison to what we experienced in the past. So
yeah, bro, this is so funny you say that. This is like us if we were like both veterans.
We're
veterans because we played Raid.
Yeah, so for our purposes, let's just take that this guy did not have 6 heads to deal with. Okay.
Oh, the worst part is it will only be 6 because 3 years later there's no new heads. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're going into that. Yeah. All right. So before
salty vet status. Salty vet status.
All right. Hey, MortarMike, thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. Please remember to hit like and subscribe. Go subscribe to this man over here as well.
Only if you subscribe to Sebastian first.
Okay, sounds good.
Great stuff.
And so if you haven't subscribed to him, go check him out. He does excellent content, and he's also now trying to stream once a week. So go check those out, and I will have you. I promise soon. We'll have you on wars going on, and then
yes, I was just about to mention that. They need to be checking that out. Like that's dope. Y'all be cooking in there. The details are good.
All right, thank you very much. We'll see you all later.
Peace.